It's 9:00 p.m. You've finally settled onto the sofa, the lights are dimmed, and the house has achieved a rare moment of stillness. And then it happens. Without warning, your dog's eyes widen, their pupils dilate until they are nothing but black ink, and their rear end tucks low to the ground. In an instant, they are a blur of fur and kinetic energy, banking off the couch cushions, skidding across the hardwood, and sprinting through the hallway as if pursued by something invisible. Most owners call it the Zoomies. They laugh. They grab their phones to record the chaos, and they assume it's just a burst of pent-up energy, a quirky glitch in the canine system. But behavioral neuroscience tells a far more profound story. What you're witnessing isn't just a random explosion of movement. It is a sophisticated biological discharge, a neurochemical reset button, and an evolutionary survival mechanism that has been hardwired into their DNA for thousands of years. Every time your dog sprints and circles around your living room, they are performing a ritual of emotional regulations that most owners completely misunderstand. What your dog is doing right now is one of the most vital windows into their internal state. And it's not about being crazy, it's about being safe. Let's start with the most common explanation because it feels logical. The energy theory. We assume that if a dog hasn't had a long enough walk, their body simply overflows with kinetic potential and the Zoomies are the leak. But here's the problem with that logic. Dogs who have just finished a 5-mile hike or an intense hour of agility training are often the ones most likely to experience these frenetic random activity periods, or FRAPs. If it were purely about physical exhaustion, the Zoomies should vanish after a workout. Instead, they often intensify. Researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna have spent years observing the transition between high-stress environments and the onset of these bursts. They found that FRAPs are not a symptom of boredom, but a physiological response to the cessation of tension. Think of it like a spring that has been held under pressure. When the pressure is released, the spring doesn't just return to its original shape, it overshoots it. Your dog isn't sprinting because they have too much energy. They are sprinting because their nervous system is finally allowed to decompress after a period of holding itself together. To understand why this happens, we have to look under the skin at the delicate balance of the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal system. Throughout the day, your dog accumulates microstresses. It could be the sound of a distant siren, the frustration of waiting for a treat, or the intense focus required to navigate a walk in a busy neighborhood. These moments trigger the release of cortisol and adrenaline. In a wild setting, these chemicals would be burned off immediately through a hunt or a flight from a predator. But in our modern homes, that chemical buildup often has nowhere to go. In 2018, a study published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science looked at the correlation between trigger stacks and sudden activity bursts. They found that when a dog enters a state of FRAPs, their brain is shifting from the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mode, to the parasympathetic system, which handles rest and digest. The sprinting is the bridge. The intense physical exertion triggers a massive dump of endorphins and dopamine. It is, quite literally, a runner's high designed to flush the system of cortisol. When your dog finally stops and flops onto the rug, panting and grinning, they aren't just tired. They are neurologically refreshed. Their internal chemistry has been reset to zero. Perhaps the most famous version of the Zoomies occurs immediately after a bath. Every owner knows the ritual. The dog is dried off. They shake once, and then they lose their mind, racing through the house and rubbing their face on every piece of furniture they own. Most people think they're just happy to be dry, but the science suggests something much deeper. For a dog, being wet is a state of extreme vulnerability. It weighs down their coat, making them slower and less agile. More importantly, the scent of the shampoo, which smells like lavender in spring to us, is a sensory assault to them. It masks their natural identity scent, the olfactory signature that tells the world who they are. In the wild, a predator that smells like nothing or smells like artificial flowers is a predator that stands out. The post-bath Zoomie is a frantic effort to regain their identity. By sprinting and rubbing against the carpet, they are trying to wear their environment again, to reestablish their scent profile and to generate body heat, to return to a state of homeostatic safety. They aren't celebrating the bath. They are reclaiming themselves from it. If you watch a dog in the middle of the Zoomies, you'll notice their movements aren't random. They often involve a specific tuck and run posture, rear legs brought forward, back arched, tail low. This is a non-aggressive motor pattern. In the wild, young wolves use this exact movement to practice escaping from a predator without actually being in danger. It is a form of play solicitation. Pathologists have discovered that FRAPs are often a way for a dog to communicate that they feel safe enough to be out of control. In a dangerous environment, no animal would ever sprint in circles and lose track of its surroundings. Therefore, when your dog zooms in your presence, they are performing the ultimate tribute to your bond. They are telling you that their environment is so secure and their guardian is so reliable that they can afford to completely abandon their defenses. They aren't just playing, they are celebrating the absence of fear. There's a fascinating layer to this that involves you, the owner. We've discussed how dogs and humans synchronize their heart rates and cortisol levels, but a 2022 study out of the University of Helsinki looked at how contagious emotional states are. During high arousal events like Zoomies, they found that when an owner laughs, claps, or engages with the dog during a burst, the dog's oxytocin levels spike even higher than during a standard walk. This suggests that Zoomies aren't always a solo event. They are an invitation to co-regulate. Your dog is saying, "I'm feeling a massive surge of relief, join me in this joy." It's a way of aligning your nervous systems. However, there is a nuance here that almost nobody thinks about. If your dog only has Zoomies when you are stressed, they might be acting out the tension they are absorbing from you. Because their nervous system is calibrated against yours, they may be trying to flush your cortisol out of their system. While Zoomies are almost always a sign of a healthy, happy dog, there's a point where the science tells us to pay closer attention. When a behavior becomes fixed or obsessive, it shifts from a frap into what veterinarians call a stereotypy. If your dog isn't just running but is spinning in tight circles for minutes on end, or if they seem locked in the behavior and cannot be distracted by a treat or call, it may no longer be a release of joy. In older dogs, a sudden increase in frantic nighttime activity can be an early indicator of canine cognitive dysfunction, the dog version of Alzheimer's. The brain, struggling to process the transition from day to night, enters a state of sundowning, where the nervous system becomes overloaded and triggers a frantic, confused burst of movement. Similarly, if the Zoomies are accompanied by snapping at the air or tail chasing that results in injury, it is no longer a release valve. It is a cry for help from a nervous system that is misfiring. As an owner, your job is to know the difference between the joyful sprint and the anxious loop. One is a reset, the other is a breakdown. The next time your dog loses their mind at 9 p.m., skidding across the floor and looking at you with those wild, dilated eyes, don't just see it as a nuisance or a funny video for social media. Look closer. You're witnessing 15,000 years of evolutionary pressure being released in a single minute of pure, unadulterated movement. You are seeing a nervous system that has decided it is safe enough to let go. You are seeing the chemical byproduct of a day spent navigating a human world, finally being flushed away to make room for a night of restorative sleep. Your dog chose your living room as the stage for this performance, because you are the person who makes them feel secure enough to lose control. The Zoomies are a reminder that beneath the collar and the leash, there is a complex, ancient animal that still needs to run, still needs to feel the wind against its fur, and still needs to shake off the weight of the world. And perhaps, as we watch them sprint with such reckless abandon, we should ask ourselves why we don't have a Zoomie of our own, a way to let go of the day's tension and find that same raw, unfiltered joy. If this changed how you perceive your dog's crazy moments, subscribe to the channel and join our community. I want to know, what is the most unusual thing that triggers your dog's Zoomies? Is it the bath, a specific person, or just the moonlight? Drop a comment below. And if you've ever wondered why your dog insists on burying their toys in the couch cushions, that's the story we're telling in the next video. See you there.